Welcome to Everlasting Talk. Hello, this is Everlasting Talk with your host Ever. This is the Biography series. We'll be going before we continue. Let's make sure to check out my merch store at teespring.com. Search for New Entry Wrestling Podcast. Also follow on Instagram, on TikTok, on Twitch, and subscribe on YouTube. Today we're talking about Che Guevara. Che Guevara was a major figure in the Cuban Revolution, which helped Castro overtake Cuba from the Batista government. Che Guevara was an Argentine Marxist revolutionary, a physician, an author, a guerrilla fight leader, and a diplomat. Che Guevara was born on June 14th, 1928, in Rosario, Argentina. Full name Ernesto Rafael Guevara de la Serna. He was the oldest of five children, a middle class family of Spanish and Irish heritage. He would suffer from asthma as a child, but besides that, he would be a great student in school and eventually would go ahead and finish college and finish the medical school in 1953. Very smart kid. But in 1951, during that time he was in school, he took a 9-month trip with his friend Alberto, uh, taking a trip all the way down to Chile, Peru, Colombia, Venezuela, and Argentina. He would write a diary, now famously known as the Motorcycle Diaries, where he talked about his adventures traveling through these countries and the people he met along the way. He would eventually travel to Guatemala and experience the overthrow of the Arbenez regime, which was supported by the CIA. Guevara became a Marxist after this because he did not like the fact that the United States was imposing their will on a country like Guatemala, a Latin American country, no less. So he decided eventually he would leave Guatemala and actually met the Castro brothers, Fidel and Raul, down in Mexico City, where they planned and they discussed of wanting to overthrow the Batista government, which was running Cuba. He would actually help lead in an attack on December 2nd, 1956, almost dying in the process, but would help strengthen the guerrilla army and also strengthen the cause of the military to do so. Over time, over time, Castro, Guevara, and others would slowly but surely invade towns, winning over the people. And Batista, who was supported by the United States government, would be overthrown, and he would actually just get on an airplane and escape. I think he went to the Miami. So eventually, on January 8th, 1959, Castro forces would go into La Habana and celebrate with their tanks and with the adoration of the people. Guevara, over time, would oversee the executions of La Cabana prison, where they executed and tortured, political rivals, people who didn't believe in in their cause, people wealthy. So that's why I call a lot of people to leave Cuba. They left to Miami and other places. Um, and as eventually he became a Cuban citizen because of his work with the revolution, and he held various positions in the Cuban government. He would do speeches at the UN, very famous. Check it out. I'll definitely look into that. Um, he would actually turn against the Soviets. The Soviet Union was actually helping Cuba with, because the Soviets were it's during the Cold War with the United States, so Cuba allowed um, the Soviets or the Russians to have weapons and give them weapons, and he actually went ahead and decided to want to speak to Mao's government, which eventually recently took the over China and named it the People's Republic of China. So the Soviets and the Chinese did not like each other, so the Soviets hated that. They wanted to leave, because they were the only allies that Cuba had, at the time, because of the U.S. decided to like do embargoes and stuff later on. Eventually, he would write a couple books, including Guerrilla Warfare in 1961. He would go ahead and um, 1965 go to the Democratic Republic of the Congo and help guerrilla fighters there overthrow their government. He denounced his Cuban citizenship because he didn't like a lot of the actions that were taking place by the Cuban government. He would eventually start doing some revolutionary revolutions or trying to do guerrilla armies in Tanzania and Austria. Eventually, he ended up in Bolivia, um, where that's where he would be his meet his demise. He went in 1966. He led a guerrilla group trying to overthrow the Bolivian government and fought against the Bolivian army in the jungles of Bolivia. Eventually, on October 9th, 1967, he was caught. He was tortured. He eventually got executed. His hands were cut off. It was like a show of like disrespect for them. They preserved his hands in formaldehyde and secretly buried him randomly somewhere, so no one could um, worship his body, or or for his body to get exhumed or anything like that. So it disappeared. But eventually, after much searching, this is like years later in 1997. Through different things and testimonies and all that, they found his skeleton and his remains were sent back to Cuba, where his rest were still rested to this day. His legacy was a fighting spirit in his face forever on an iconic photo. You've seen it on shirts, you've seen it on murals, you've seen it everywhere. It's been everywhere. It's been plastered. He's still highly regarded in Cuba because of the things he did for the revolution. Although eventually, if Castro was very sad that Guevara died, but he died for them as a martyr, and many others still believe in his ideology of not allowing the Western powers to do all this and that to Latin American countries. Now comes the movie and book recommendations. In 2004, there was a movie called The Motorcycle Diaries. It's a good one. Like I mentioned, it talked about his journeys through the countries of Guatemala, um, Peru, um, what else? What other country? Chile, Colombia, Venezuela, and his own country of Argentina. Also, there's a one that came out called Che, Part One and Two. I saw it from 2008. It was really good. I liked that one a lot. Um, and there's also a book, like Motorcycle Diaries from 1992. 1960s book he wrote himself called Guerrilla Warfare, a 1967 book called Guevara Speaks, and more. I will go ahead and check those out. Obviously, check out the movies too. You can find them on your streaming services or whatever, but definitely check them out. Although he was very controversial in his ideology, he's an icon in Latin America. Standing up against Western ideologies and pressure to kneel to the United States. Like I mentioned, yeah, he does have he's controversial because in the Cuban prisons they would execute, murder people who were because of their sexual orientation, their religion, their own political beliefs, 'cause, the rich, multiple others. So a lot of people left Cuba for that reason too. But yeah, Che Guevara, he was. It depends on how you look at history. I always tell people this, like, always like see a different side of the story. Obviously, you can make your own opinion about him. You probably don't know who he is. You probably do. You probably love his ideology. You probably respect his ideology. You probably have seen his shirt somewhere. But this is just a biography that I talk about. Che Guevara, a little bit about who he was. I know it was a short little biography, but yeah, I mean, if anything, if I was you, check out his books, check out the movies, check out his writings, do your own little history search as well. And before I go, like I said, make sure to check out my merch store on teespring.com. Check me out on Instagram, Twitch, Twitter, and make sure to subscribe on YouTube. And thank you so much. This is Ever from Everlasting Talk, and see you at the next one. Bye, guys. Thank you for listening to this episode of Everlasting Talk. For more content, follow us on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram at Everlasting Talk. Thank you.